Joining us now is Eric Williams. He's an associate professor at the Golisano Institute for Sustainability at the Rochester Institute of Technology in New York. He's via Skype from there. Thank you so much for being with us live, in fact. What would you say are the opportunities that e-waste presents in terms of recycling?
Well, thank you for inviting me to be on the program. Electronic waste is very different from other things we use the word waste for. In many cases, electronic waste is still functional or can be easily repaired, and someone wants the device. So a considerable industry, both in developed and the developing world, is engaging in repairing and reselling this end-of-life electronics. Now, this is relevant to the digital divide. The digital divide is the idea that the information technology widens the gap, the economic gap between developed and developing world. And so now, while the digital divide is very complicated, the cost of electronics is an important issue. And if you can't afford a computer, then it's much more difficult to learn how to use one.
Right.
And so millions and millions of people around the world have gotten access to this equipment due to this repair and reuse industry. So the opportunity, I think, is how to get the most economic and social value out of this and out of these end-of-life electronics.
Tell us about the environmental impacts, both of e-waste itself and also of the trading of e-waste that goes on between countries, because this is something that's going on right now.
Sure. Yeah. So there is a downside. The problem is that you have these very valuable materials in an e-waste, such as gold, such as copper, and it's mixed in the devices in a very complicated way. So it's technologically challenging to get it out in an environmentally safe way. And so what happens is it ends up in the hands of these informal recyclers in the developing world who don't have the technology and then use very destructive processes to recycle it. So, for example, wires. With wires, you want the copper inside, but you don't want the insulation. So there are machines that could chop the wire up and sort them into the into copper and casings. But when you don't have the machine, what people are doing is piling the wires up and then setting the insulation on fire. Insulation is a chlorine-containing plastic. When you burn it, very bad environmental pollution, and this is causing substantial environmental harm in these areas. So there are also problems with recycling circuit boards. People use cyanide and acids to get the gold out. So
Eric, in what ways then can we do a better job of re-tackling the e-waste challenge?
Yes. So as was mentioned early in the program, one of the main ways the governments are trying to tackle this is with trade bans. And the idea is, well, much of this electronics is coming from developed to developing nations, and if we can stop that flow, then it will solve the problem. The problem is that if you run the numbers, most of the e-waste is being generated now in the developing world, not the developed. And so even if you succeed in cutting off that trade, you won't solve the problem. And so I think that there is a need for direct interventions to try to do better with the impacts of informal recycling. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Eric. I think there's a way. We're running out of time, unfortunately. Thank you so much. It was very good to talk to you and hear your thoughts on this. Eric Williams from the Rochester Institute of Technology, live there from New York.